I do 3 little things that I put together just randomly, more or less, that I thought you might find interesting. Yeah, and these are what the heck. It was an issue I had. Also was a ticket at your site with an hack source, how the analyze went, solution, and hopefully avoidance of this issue. Then maybe data reduction world record, which yeah, data set we ingest goes really down 99% or even more. And then this was more a private thing I did to play around with the REST collector of Cribl, and found out by trying that you can get the data from a static HTML site. And I will tell you why I did it and how. A little bit about myself. I'm in IT since 2001. Never went to college, which is pretty rare maybe in the meantime, but in Germany you can decide basically if you do an apprenticeship, which is kind of doing training on the job for 3 years, and then yeah, I choose to do this instead of going to college. And I did this at a US company, Delphi Automotive, you probably know, and former GM daughter. Then the IT department was bought by EDS. Then EDS was bought by HP. HP was split into HP and HPE. Then CSC and HPE was merged to DXC. So I signed one contract when I was 20, and this went or was with me for 20 years. I was just put in all these companies, but then last year I decided to make a change and went to SVA, which is next to other things, a big data implementing company in Germany, Splunk partner, and also indirectly Cribl partner, cooperating with one of your partners in Europe. Yeah, so I do big data stuff, mainly Splunk since 2017, first as a user, then during the last years as an admin and architect. I have 2 kids, 6 months and 5 years, 1 wife, and in private I like to DJ and collect vinyl records, and I have an old VW camper that I try to keep on the road. So doing something with my hands in private, typing. So the first part is the hack use case or hack issue I had with a hack source. There's a lot of text, you don't need to read it. I can summarize it for you. One morning, on Monday morning, I came in and saw, logged into Cribl, what all of you do on Monday morning, and I saw almost all my data streams were drawn. So they was almost maybe 1% of what they're doing usually. And I also saw the CPU peaked to the moon, and in the Cribl UI, I saw also messages of too many files open, and then I just was a little panicking because there's in the meantime important data going through that, and I did a restart of the workers one after another, and then it was good. And I was bugged, but I filed it as an odd single failure, and I didn't have too much data to analyze it to really find out what was happening. Then the next week, the same thing, and then I set up a script to collect how many open files I have open over time, and also which files were open, because I didn't, after the restart, I didn't have that information anymore. So I set up a script to collect that data. Next Monday, same thing, but then I had more data to analyze it. And then I saw where there was more than 65K open files, which was the limit on that hosts from on an operating system level. And the majority of these files were file handles to deal with open TCP connections in close wait status, and they were from a host where now we collect data from a HEC source. Yeah, and then coffee and cigarette later, I thought it might be.
Hi, Ken. Hi.
Sorry.
Carry on. That was just someone being off mic for a moment.
Okay. Yeah, so it might be related to HEC acknowledgement. And yeah, I checked the documentation of this client software that was sending the hack, and there was nothing mentioned about it. But so I enabled acknowledgement on Cribl side for the hack source, and then the open file count dropped immediately and was stable since. So that fixed it for the moment. Then I talked also this, or this is the screenshot here on the left is from the client software, which is MuleSoft Anypoint. I don't know if you know what it's an API management software. And this is all you can configure for HEC. So you can just give the host the port, but you cannot configure the endpoint if it uses event or raw, and you don't have an option to either have acknowledgement or not. It just there's a default which is yes with acknowledgement, but it's not documented anywhere, or at least in the public available documentation. So this screenshot here is from the Splunk documentation about how HEC acknowledgement works. Yeah, only the first steps went in, the data came in, but there was nothing coming back from Cribl because it didn't knew, because I didn't enable it. Because in the beginning, in that phases, it was still a test or proof of concept. So it just said, okay, no, we don't need acknowledgement. Doesn't matter if one or two events don't get to the index. So there was no acknowledgement ID going back. Yeah, so all these three steps were not happening, and the channel, the TCP channel, were kept open, and so I had this TCP connections in close wait. These stacked up to the limit, and then also this caused the CPU to peak because it was handling all these files, and yeah, so both of my workers went crazy because of this one single HEC source. Yeah, what I did over the last weeks is set up this dashboard. I'm happy that this, I don't know the name right now, the presentation of the Track Me app isn't today, because this is probably not so professional as this will be. But this is my Cribl monitoring in Splunk. So what you see is in mint or green, however the color comes to you, is the CPU usage. And I just saw before the meeting that on the right side a scale is missing. Usually we would see on the right here the scale for the megabytes per second. This would match for the green graph. Then you have the count of open files, which I divide by 100, so it scales into the other numbers. And the megabytes per second coming from the Cribl metrics, yeah, what is going out of Cribl, and which is pretty, I find pretty interesting over the day when you do a lot of stuff in Cribl. I'm ingesting the JIT history to Splunk, so all the changes I do in Cribl with the comments I do, and do an annotation of this. So this was one example. We have some sources that go to Splunk and to another security system, an ArcSight, and yeah, this was just one example in time where I deactivated these routes. And so you see the CPU goes down. Also, megabytes per second goes down. This is not so much because most of the volume is going to Splunk. But yeah, it's interesting when you do a lot of changes over the day and then see how it impacts CPU or like open file count or some, whatever else. And if I had this earlier, I could have set up an alert on the open file count for, I don't know, in percent or maybe 50,000, and would have been notified early about problems.
Hey, Ralph. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to know if you were okay with people asking questions in the middle of this, or if you wanted them to wait until the end.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody has any questions, but I just wanted to ask.
Because this is now the end of this first of 3 use cases.
All right.
Thanks a lot for the introduction, Rachel.
Yes, you have a question?
Yeah, sure. Quick question, Rolf. You talked about MuleSoft as your hack source for this. Do you have different hack sources onto the same endpoint as well, or is that currently the only hack endpoint or a hack source for that endpoint?
Well, the funny thing is, I think 2 of these data that I'm now ingesting is coming with hack. So the solution to the hack problem is hack. But no, this is MuleSoft is the only one we use for the production data, let's say, at the moment.
Reason why I'm asking, and Johannes, I think here as well, because there's a case arrived today on the support side that Cribl only enables on the source level to enable acknowledgement or disable it. And I would like to ask you if you're using the same HTTP events, this source, with acknowledgement and without, what would happen if you just send from a source without acknowledgement to a destination in Cribl which acknowledges back again, if you have tested that.
Yeah. No, I have that situation. I would think the ACK IDs would go to def null or something, but could cause troubles on the client side. Maybe I'm not sure.
And Cribl might retry the ACK as well.
Yeah.
So you haven't tested that. Okay.
No. And maybe on the data, it's maybe not. Yeah.
There's an obvious solution. We can use 2 different ports, one with acknowledgement, one without acknowledgement. That would be one of the obvious solutions, but it just was curious if you had that problem.
No, only the other way around.
For the Git history that you're getting in, how there are hooks to, and I'm not super familiar with Git, so I'm not quite sure. How do you have that set up? Because I know, merging you can do hooks, but
that's an customized shell script. Basically, I like Bash, old school, and it's a JIT command where you can say in the changes during the last 10 minutes or doing a set time, and then it's a cron job that runs, I think, every 10 minutes, giving me the changes that was done during the last 10 minutes, and then ironically sending this data to HEC because it has to run on the master node, and I don't. Then HEC was an easy way to get the data in. So I'm sending it from the master node to one of the workers here, HEC.
Okay.
And open file count, this was again something I wanted to play around with the file system collector. So there's another script I do where the open files of the Cribl users are stored in, I think, in 5 minutes batches, and then a file system collector on the both of the workers send it into a pipeline and then to Splunk. Maybe it doesn't make sense to collect all these things in different ways, but it was getting to know Cribl and different possibilities you have with it. Yeah, and then the third thing is the megabytes per second, which come in with the Cribl internal metric source. I wasn't so happy, I have to say, with the Cribl app for Splunk because at least out of the box, it's just giving you more or less the data reduction you do. And you have this dashboard where you see, okay, this source type is the difference between in and out is the largest on source type XY. But at least what I saw with looking at it for a moment, I didn't see the option to, show me the in, the out, or it's not. Yeah, it was easier for me to take the data and put it on this chart here for me in the way I need it or I think. it helps me more.
Yeah, I think it would be really cool if just the commits, because the master is doing the commits, so it should be able to just have an option to send those with the, or maybe they are in Cribl logs.
We have
have
some
to check.
experts here.
Yeah, that would be the, if not, I'm gonna go into the feature request channel right now.
There are some things that are now tagged to the audit log. I believe a commit is there, but I don't remember if it includes the commit message. So pulling that stuff from Git log is probably the more complete way of getting it at this point.
Yeah, because that functionality of annotation of commits is really useful.
Totally.
Yeah, it's helped me a lot doing some debugging, or just to see what is the impact of doing stuff. I noticed when I installed 2.4.2, going from 2.4.0, the CPU peaked for a day or so. I don't know the reason yet, but I saw it here in my chart. There was nothing changed besides upgrading, but it was very busy with this for a while. But then it went down again. Not sure why, but yeah. And I didn't set up yet, but you could do alerts on all this stuff to see, when megabytes goes down, when CPU goes up, when open file count reaches a limit. And you can match it with your own comments if you hopefully do sensible commit comments.
I've checked the statement in the background. Yes, the audit log does contain a commit, but not the comment.
Okay.
Woohoo! I remembered it right.
Woohoo!
So does that mean I need to go to the feature request channel and ask for the comment to be added to the commit? To the audit
Can't
log?
hurt. That's what it's there for. Cool. Any other questions or discussion? Do you have more to discuss, Ralph?
I could go on with the next use case. All right. Which is maybe data reduction world record. And I need to go to my Chrome, because you need to see the data. This is GPO settings of Windows, so policy settings, and my customer has a hardening policy, so they need to make sure that certain settings, like simple example, password needs to be changed every 30 days, and 20 of these similar things are in this XML, which is pages long. It's in average 300 kilobytes, and that's treated as one event, which gives me, or sometimes still gives me trouble ingesting it in Splunk, because it did send only partial events because it truncated, or it took too long from the first written byte until the last byte was written to disk, and then the event was already sent to Cribl. But it works now, and David Cribl.io helped me to put up this pipeline. So the first thing we do is, again, this is parse XML, not a new Win event. And this hint helped me a lot to use Stringify, which removes all of the tabs and new line breaks, etc. So then you have one long string in JSON of the data you had in XML, which is still pretty long, but you can. And that's the point. In the next step, I do regular expressions, and it was a pain doing this regex with all these tabs and new lines, etc. It was much more easy with the stringified data. So with the regexes, I also need to scroll down. So this is all I need of this 300 kilobyte. These 20 fields enabled, true, false, false. So it's nothing, and all the rest is garbage for me, at least for this use case. So I have this in this field now, outside of raw. So we serialize it back to raw in as a JSON object. And in the last step, I think we remove everything but raw. Yeah, and that's all that goes to Splunk. That's all I need. And went down to some table statistics. 99.7% down. It's because we have 600 hosts, but these are only refreshed once a week. So the volume of a week or so is not so much. So if this would have been data that comes in a stream all the time, it would be a major win. So this is, yeah, looking at the monthly ingestion volume, it's not so much, but yeah, for this one file or the 600 files, removing 99.7.6% was really good. And now it's much easier to work with. In the beginning, I had this long XML in Splunk and doing the regexes with the rex command over there, and it was a pain. You couldn't, you know, when it displayed the long XML, the scrolling lagged and everything, and yeah, dashboard that uses this data was so slow, and this yeah, comes now in a finger flip. I cannot show you because it's on a customer system, but I guess you know the difference between 300 kilobyte event and what is it now, 750 bytes. So that was really a good win. And yeah, David helped me setting this up, so thanks again. Okay, I need to go back to the presentation. Yeah, that was just a quick use case. Now to COVID or Corona use case. The background is I live in a, maybe for US relations, a small city in Germany, and we are part of what you probably can refer to as a county. So we are part of our city administration is done by a bigger city in our next to the city where I live in. It does administration for, I think, 10 cities, and there's no dashboard publicly available to see the incidence value. I don't know if you use this number also for in COVID. So the number says how many new COVID cases you have per 100,000 people in a week. And there's no dashboard for my city that shows this number in a, yeah, on a time chart, let's say, to speak in Splunk language. But there's a small website on our administration internet presentation, this simple HMA table. This is my city and this number. They refresh it every day, but there's no, you don't see the development of this number over time. And yeah, this is just simple kindergarten HTML. The number is here in this TR/TD format. So what I just tried it and it worked to use a REST collector without any authentication, just the HTML. When it worked, you get the full HTML that's behind the page, and then a simple, more or less simple regular expression. I could take the number out, send it to Splunk, and now I have a dashboard of the development of the COVID cases in my city, which is not available. Only the daily number. You can write it down on a pencil or, yeah, send it to Splunk with Cribl. So just a simple, I put this in the presentation because some days or last week or so, someone asked in the community if you can ingest a Twitter stream, and yes, also that's possible, not with Twitter Core, but I think XPEC suggested an alternative Twitter client, and also with this you could ingest Twitter stream and then send it to, I don't know, to Splunk and get alert. I think it was for PS5 release, new batch of available PS5 devices. You could also do something like that with Cribl combined with something that can alert you. Yeah, that's all for me for now. Thank you for your patience. Any questions? So
Anyone?
I just want to say I love the use of the REST collector. I think there are all sorts of like free APIs out there that may not seem useful until you really look at them. I love to use weather APIs for like understanding where people are, where our team is and what their what their weather situation is. The COVID ones are great. I mean, it's a great use of that capability.
Yep. Okay, so I stop my sharing.
Yeah, very cool idea of just pulling the HTML page with a collector.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that it works. I just tried it. And doesn't work. Sure, for like Twitter.com, for example, I tried it, and there's JavaScript and everything behind it. Doesn't give you any useful data, but yeah, in this case, this was really real simple HTML that could have been written in 1999.
All right. Anyone else? Or shall we? All right. What do we do next? I guess we will do the raffle after the AppScope presentation.
Yeah, because otherwise everybody's just going to leave, right?
Yeah, that's
We're only
totally
here for the raffle, clearly.
That's why I show up to these meetings every month, just hoping, I
get your hoodie. Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, I would like to introduce Donn and John, engineers from Cribl, who have been working on AppScope, and they have a presentation to talk to us about. Would you also prefer folks interrupt with questions, or do you want to wait till the end?
Interrupt away.
All right, cool. So yeah, take it away, unless anyone has anything they want to bring up right now. Eugene, any business we need to attend to?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, let's get into it. Thanks for being here. So one of you, there we go.
Okay, so can you see my screen? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll talk about AppScope. It's a recent release from Cribl. Ralph, I have to just sort of comment. Clint built a demo for AppScope with it's a very complicated demo with Kubernetes and all that. But the crux of it is that there's an app that exhausts all of the file descriptors. I remember first looking at that thinking, that's just not a very realistic problem. And then the first thing you demo is a problem where all the file descriptors get exhausted. So I thought that was cool. The idea is to be able to collect data from any application. Black box meaning that you don't need to modify code, you don't need to install an SDK, you don't have to recompile, and it will work with across multiple runtimes, a Go runtime, Python, Java, whatever, Node, JavaScript, whatever you're using, and then be able to output to your existing tools, meaning it's especially easy through Logstream, right? Because you could send this stream of data in Logstream and then go to whatever destination you want. So this is, this is a block diagram. John, jump in for whatever as we go through this clarity wise. But the idea is that you've got a process that's running. We will, through the operating system config, cause, and in various ways, cause the library to be loaded into the process address space. Once the library is in place, we use a couple of techniques to interpose functions, meaning that when the application calls a function, it will actually go to a function in our library of the same name. We'll gather data we care about and then call the original function, returning back the values from the original. So for example, if you open a file, the function to open a file will exist in libc most often, like almost everywhere. And then we will interpose open. So your application calls open, which without any application knowledge, ends up calling open in our library. We grab some data we care about. We call the original open. And then when it returns to us, we return the values from open. So as far as the application is concerned, it called open worked, it got back the return values that it needed and didn't know that there was an interpositioning going on. We take that data, we place all that data into an in-memory queue. This is kind of important because of performance. If you try to do anything a whole lot more than that, you'll start to see measurable changes in your behavior, your measure performance change. So the idea is to just grab what you need. Don't format it, don't do anything other than some copies, put it into a queue and go on. And then we have a thread that runs periodically. And that by default, it runs every 10 seconds. Of course, that's configurable. And what that thread does is drain the queues. It'll grab the data out of the queue. At that point, we'll format that into what's appropriate. Metrics and stats.d or JSON events are all in ND-JSON. And then it writes it out to whatever you've configured it to go to. So events can go out over UDP to like a stats.d or New Relic or something like that. Excuse me, metrics can. Events go out over by default to format in JSON and go out to, you can send them directly to Splunk if you choose to, those kinds of things. Or of course, they to Logstream. And then Logstream will format as you guys know as well as anybody, and then send to whatever destination you want. So that's the very, very high level view of what we do. Any questions or you got any comments on it, John, before I go on?
I got a question.
Sure.
So this is apparently, from what it looks like, not tightly coupled with Logstream. Is there a command and control for configuring it remotely, or? Yeah,
great question. Excellent. Yeah. So first of all, to configure with Logstream is just a single configuration. You just give it a either an entry in a YAML config file or an event or an environment variable, and you give it host name and port number. That's it. That's all you got to do. Everything else after that will just go to Logstream and with a series of default configs. In Logstream, release 1, there won't be a command and control mechanism there. We do have one. We demoed it a while back. It's not ready for prime time, but the intent is the second release after this will have the remote control essentially. So you'll be able to see what the configuration is for each application, take that application, break it down by process, modify that configuration, create a default configuration for everything to use, all those kinds of things will be available in Logstream. And then of course, after that will be visualizations and graphs and so forth directly in Logstream. The first step would be to have Logstream send this to Prometheus or something like that or whatever to actually do the visualization. Eventually Logstream will do its own visualization.
Yeah, and another thing to maybe mention along the lines of the decoupling is that AppScope is Cribl's first open source project. So we're new to it. We're going to learn as we go. But it is decoupled in the sense that the code is there for you to to inspect, to propose changes to, whatever. And we're obviously it's still early, so we we'll probably have to be developing some comfort with all of that stuff. But the intent by having it open source is it is a usable thing all by itself, right? And so, like Donn said, you can route the data without routing it through Logstream. Of course, we're also going to try to make it integrate as smoothly as possible to Logstream, but that's, it shouldn't be it will never be a requirement to have Logstream to be able to use Scope, AppScope.
Right. Yep. And there is, to that end, there is a command line interface as a part of that open source. The command line interface gives you a UX. It's actually a pretty nice UX. If you look at the website, it's I can say that because I didn't write it. The UX, the actual command line interface. Believe it or not, Clint, our CEO, did all of the CLI himself over a few weekends, and it is there's little terminal-based graphs and things like that that are available and so forth. It's actually kind of slick. But this, as John said, that's the idea, to be able to use this without Logstream to make it actually usable. I mean, so you can, with that CLI, you can look at any command. You just say scope space whatever. It's the analogy that I've heard other people use, that it's kind of like TCP dump or strace for your application, right? You just, like you would otherwise say strace space execute something, you'll get a bunch of standard error output. This will, you just do scope space whatever your command is, and it will write it to files by default. You can change that configuration to go out over TCP or UDP to whatever tool you have, but by default it just goes into a file, and then you can use the scope CLI to pull data out of those files that it generated to look at graphs and metrics and whatever, all within the a bash command line. So while you can connect this to other stuff, the intent and the goal was to provide, to make this usable without any external tools. Just get on the command line and go. You literally download one executable, and when it runs, it will expose, bundled inside that executable is the loader in the library and so forth. It'll expose that for you. Just to speak about this a little bit, the library is what I've referred to in the that's sort of the core of everything that this does is in the library. There is a loader that we use, and then a command line interface that's on top of that. The purpose of the loader is very narrow. It was originally built because static executables do not load libraries, right? And so and there are very few static executables in the world. If you look at all of them, in a Linux distro, there are very, very few of them. You guys probably know more than I do what they are. The biggest source of static executables is Go, as it turns out, for whatever reason. And even then, more and more executables by default with Go are not built static. They are built dynamic because of lots of reasons. And but the idea of the loader is for static applications. If you do LD scope space, the name of your application, it will guarantee that if it's dynamic, it loads it normally like it normally would. If it's static, it'll take care of it. So the idea is that you just kind of don't have to think about it. If you run with the loader, you can just load whatever, and it will work for you one way or the other. The CLI uses the loader behind the scenes, and just LD scopes whatever it needs, and off you go. So
it looked for a second like Ben Marcus. Did you have a question? You had your hand raised for quite a long time.
Yeah, I was just curious if when you're developing this, if you had considered maybe doing it as part of like an eBPF kernel.
Yeah, absolutely. And we probably will do part of that in a coming phase. The reason why we didn't do eBPF sort of in totality is because there's a lot of benefit we get from being in user mode. One big example is encrypted data. So when the application, when you're running like this, the application, we see the data before it's decrypted and sent out on a wire. We see the data after it's been decrypted before it is returned back to the application. So we're able to see that data in you know, in any form. There are a number of performance benefits from not having to copy user mode, kernel mode. We do extract all payloads if not by default, but it's a simple thing to just turn them on just because of the volume of data. So getting things like payloads and that kind of stuff is pretty expensive from an eBPF standpoint. So this turns out to be much more performant and gives us a lot more options in terms of what we can see from the application.
Thanks.
Thanks, Pi. I didn't see Ben's hand, so thank you for that.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything before we move on? Oh, going once, going twice. Okay, carry on, guys. Ooh. Got quite a crew in here. Keep getting the participants window popped out and then popped back in. Here comes somebody. All right. Well, thanks very much for talking about that. Let's see. Sorry, I've got like a million messages happening here. Whoa.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, is there going to be a demo?
Yeah, I think just talking about the library stuff is less wow than actually showing them what it's doing. Do we have are we doing that today, or that's for later? Or
I can try to just start some stuff up just so we can sort of see it in progress. Is that okay, Don? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, it's not.
Dare you? I dare
it's
you.
not a
Were we not showing them the CLI?
Well,
oh, look who's here.
Hey.
What, you want to give the demo, Clint?
I wasn't prepped, but I thought that's what we were doing. I thought we were showing them the CLI.
Look at
Rachel
that.
made us promise within an inch of our lives that we wouldn't take up a lot of time. So we were trying to.
That is a
trying to be
total
careful.
lie. You are making shit up.
Thing we can't show them the library blobs like that. We got to show them.
Yeah, I don't think the librry's probably gonna demo as well. Yeah, I can do it.
Well,
all right.
Right.
You're like, yes, please.
I will yield the floor.
The big boss is here to take over.
All right, let's see. I had not actually planned, so I'm doing some things. I will share some things. Let's do some things.
Thanks, Clint.
All right, let's see. What do I have on my machine? I have something that will probably run. So let's go. So what I'm going to show you is our nifty scope CLI that shows you how to that'll allow us to interact with some command line executables, etc. So what did you guys cover already? Did you cover the basics of kind of like?
We just did the basics. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What is it? How does it work? Fundamentally. Yep.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so Scope is a language agnostic instrumentation library that allows you to interpose between any application and the resources that it's expecting. For this audience, it's sort of like strace meets TCP dump. So what we're attempting to do is to give you, visibility into applications that historically have been kind of really hard to get at, right? So take, for example, something like an Nginx. Right. So how many people have wanted to see what's coming in and out of even like payloads of Nginx, right? Well, what I have generally available for me when I'm doing something like Nginx is logs, right? I can see, what HTTP requests if I turned on logging, right? What I'd really like to be able to see is I'd like to be able to see HTTP level information, right? I'd like to be able to see all the gets, all the puts, all the, I'd also like to see, hey, what files is Nginx opening? What resources is it requesting? What network connections is it making available? So we have a very simple to use CLI for Scope. So if you just run Scope itself, it'll give you some interactive help. In the background here, if I look in my background, I have Nginx already running in the background for me. So if the way that I've run this is I've said, if I want to scope something, all I have to do is just prepend the scope CLI. And so scope will automatically take any process that I've scoped, and it will then wrap itself around that given process and give me information about what's happening. So in this case, for this particular demo, I've got a lot of different ways of requesting information via from Nginx, but let's just start with, hey, maybe I'm just going to curl HTTPS. I think it's on 443. Let's see what all I have. I can't remember what all I have in here. Oh, self-site, sorry. So what's notable about, oh, I don't have log py there, but that's fine. What's notable about this particular demo that I'm doing is, one, I ran curl just like I normally ran it. I prepended scope in front of that. But what's interesting about it is I'm requesting data over HTTPS, which historically I said, hey, strace meets TCP dump. So, you know, what's unique about I can do this with TCP dump, not with encrypted connections. And so after I've run this particular command, if I type scope events, it's going to show me a rich set of events that have occurred since that application has started. And so in this particular case, just running curl, we can see a lot of super interesting things that curl does that you may not be paying attention to. One is it's opening up and it's getting information about its OpenSSL configuration. It's opening up the Etsy host file. It's making a network connection. In this case, it's a TCP socket. It's opening up certificate files. It's making a connection to localhost, and then it's printing out to the console what it found. So that's an incredible amount of information from an unmodified Linux binary. And I can do that. I can scope literally anything. So if I'm saying I can scope ls, right? So if I go scope events, I can see, oh, hey, look, it's writing, you know, here are all the things that it wrote to the particular console. If I run scope metrics, I can see a lot of information about the performance of that particular application as well. And scope also maintains a rich history of all of the commands that have already been scoped. So if you're looking, you can kind of use this as kind of a session history, right? So if as you're scoping things, as you're running your investigations, we're keeping a list of all of the history of the sessions that you're running. So for example, if I go back here and I look at, let's just go look at metrics. And I'm going to say, I want to graph the, let's say the CPU consumption, and I want to run it for that Nginx. I can see all this history of samples. That's very text-based. But if I want to do a simple graph, there we go. Now I've got a nice little graph that I'm showing you interactively of the CPU performance. And we actually, because it's a text-based application, we ship you kind of a rich dashboarding experience as well inside of the CLI. And this will keep running and keep updating. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cancel out of this really quick, and I'm going to go, I have a little script here. And I haven't done this demo in a while, so I have to see here. It is https.shell. So if you see here in this example, one of the things that scope does for you, it's an unmodified set of Linux binaries. We don't care what the runtime is, so we can give you HTTP level information, file access information, network information, detailed instrumentation for any application in a black box manner, no matter the runtime. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to scope this shell script here. And what the shell script is going to do is it's going to make HTTP requests in curl, in wget, in Python, in Perl, in Go, in Java. And if I go look at my history now, actually it was all running under that one individual shell command. But if I look at scope events for number 5 here, I will see that Java, I'll just do -A. So I can see Java made HTTP requests. So let's do this and say, hey, I want only HTTP events. I can see curl making an HTTPS request, and notice that the scheme is HTTPS. So we're actually seeing encrypted wire traffic. It's happening over localhost, but I can see it from curl. I can see it from wget. I can see it from Python. I can see it from Perl. I can see it from Java. And so the key differentiator about what makes scope so different about APM or anything else that you've seen come in the past is this is language agnostic. It gives you visibility into encrypted wire traffic. And it does this with a simple prepending of, hey, all I want to do is just go run scope on this particular command. So that was like 5 minutes. Questions? Got a big audience.
What
Nice.
resolution can your timestamps go to?
In this case, I think we're nanoseconds-ish resolutions on this side. John, is that right? Donn?
Yeah, we have nanosecond timing. We usually, depends on what the metric is. Some of these things, we will default in some cases to milliseconds. Like for example, on DNS traffic, because, you know, nanosecond duration for DNS is kind of overkill, that, as an example. But we have nanosecond timing, yes.
Yeah, one question here. Would you say this is stable enough to have it run, like you have an application maybe self-written by your customer, and it does not log the data you need, but AppScope would be able to give it, and you want to have it all day, all week? So can you have this application run in scope? Or I saw in the presentation it's 2% overload, so I guess it's the more performance impact you have. And that's
Yep,
all.
that's what it's intended to go there. I would say it's probably not ready for prime time or get related to production workloads yet, but it's getting there. And that's what we're doing over the course of this year. So we started with, hey, we're going to make you an easy to use command line experience that anybody can approach. That again, strace meets TCP dump, but we're moving. It does work as an agent. We run this internally where we're scoping, always running processes and feeding that metric and event information to your existing tools. So the goal of scope is to give you APM like information, but delivered as logs and metrics to your existing tools.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
but
good.
Not quite. I wouldn't go roll this out, you know, organization wide just yet. I'd start in some lower environments and play around with it, but that's where we're going.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Clint, I got a quick question for you. The data that you're showing, like when you did the history and when you're looking at the events, I don't recall, where is that coming from? Is that like saved to a file and it's being pulled from disk to be displayed, or is it in RAM? How does that work?
Yeah, so when you're running the CLI maintains state in a .scope directory in your home directory. So all of the events and everything it's capturing, or there's a directory structure in there, and you can go interrogate that. It's just open file format sitting in that directory structure.
Got it. Thanks.
Any more questions? No, thanks for jumping in with the demo.
Is that configurable where that's stored instead of the home dir?
Yeah, you can set a scope home environment variable that'll change where that's written to.
Okay. And if you're going to run over time, you, like Ralph was asking about, you may not want to put it all on disk. You may want to actually send it over TCP to something else where you're storing it. And so, you know, all of those options are available to you.
Would Logstream be a good thing to use that for?
Yep. So there's an AppScope input in Logstream version 2.4.3 that's coming out today. Has enhanced support for AppScope sending to it, and the CLI that'll be out next week will have in version 0.51, which is what I was demoing. The CLI doesn't have a simple mechanism of configuring scope to output to other systems. In 0.6, which is coming out in another week or so, there'll be a simple flag on the CLI that says, hey, I want to scope this and I want to send that data to Cribl, or I want to send that data to another metrics or event destination. So they're easy to use options there for sending that data elsewhere.
I think you cannot hook it to a already running process, right? You have to
coming, not yet, but we have internal proofs of concept that have done that.
Okay. Would be cool for
not shipping
debugging problems. Yeah, also in production, where you say, okay, I need more data to find the root cause, but if I restart, all the data is lost. That might help to root cause.
It'll be good for that. Although I would say that we will provide support for that, but the vision for scope is that you're always running it and you're changing what level of detail might be coming in and out of the instrumentation as you so fit. But that it's relatively cheap to egress that data. So especially on like localhost. So for example, let's say that I'm generating an event for every file open and an event for every file closed. It's a lot of data, but the way we see it is that there will then be eventually intervening sort of pawns of higher and lower fidelity data as you get down the stream, right? So in one local buffer, I maybe have incredibly high fidelity data that shows every file being open, every file being closed, because that's really relevant for, let's say, like the last hour. But after an hour, like, do I need that level of information? Nope. Aggregates and metrics will probably, suffice for me to look over longer periods of time. And so you'll see Logstream getting pushed further to the edge, where Logstream is receiving this data from AppScope, buffering that data, making that data available for replay and other types of use cases. And so where you'll see us going is that you can also dial up and down the instrumentation. So you'll be able to control from Logstream and push into Scope, say, I want to dial up instrumentation right now. And it's better to have the application already running with Scope inside of it to receive those signals and then turn up and down the instrumentation that you want based off of what your needs are right at the moment.
Any other questions? We're running way over, but that's fine. I have pushed to my next meeting so that we can do the raffle because people want swag. Is that not correct? In this case, we may get some people who have won that had to drop off at the hour. So we took a list as Eugene recommended. We take a screenshot before everybody bailed.
Which
okay.
dice am I getting out for this?
Oh, let's see. 1, 2. This is why I wish I could get a text list generated from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It looks like 14. So
20 it is.
We'll just have to eliminate 1 through 1 through 6.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the thing that we're going to raffle off today that we haven't seen before is the Cribl coffee mug. Whoa, sorry, can you see this? I feel like I'm on the on the shopping network. But yeah, it's these are made out of something that that is compostable, if I recall, but it seems to work pretty well. Just we weren't supposed to put it in the dishwasher. It's pretty well insulated. It's metal on the inside. Anyway, I've got a couple of these I can give away. Oh, here is the rolling of the dice.
All right. Let's see. So anything above a 14 where we're rolling?
Let's try. Yeah, let's do that.
Is that
works for me?
All right. 16 doesn't do it.
13. 13. That is Oliver Hop. And I think he had to bail. So I'll make a note and get his info.
Awesome.
Yes, finally some swap.
Oh, there you are.
Oh,
I'm here.
Send me, DM me your mailing info, and I will need a phone number as well for them to use.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
How many do we have?
We have 2 of these mugs, and we have a hoodie. So,
ooh.
And Clint is modeling the hoodie right now.
And that's the order we're going with. So the most exciting present for last. All right.
Well, everyone does want a hoodie. It's true.
Okay. All right.
Let's go with the next mug.
Is it Clint's actual hoodie that we win?
I don't know if I want that.
Number 2.
I have so many of these things.
Number 2 is Aleem.
All right.
Ooh. All right. Well, message me your well, actually, I already have your mailing address because you live in the same town as my dad.
I do.
So, all right, we will get you a mug. What an auspicious first user group meeting for you.
Very nice.
All right, and now we're gonna raffle off a fancy Cribl hoodie with the soft interior special fabric hood. Oh, look, Ralph is wearing his.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming we're you can't win 2 things in one user group meeting?
Correct. This
okay.
time.
19 reroll. 14.
14. That is that's Ralph. So I think we need to re-roll.
1 is good.
All right. And 18 reroll. 9.
9 is
this is
Jason
really reflecting
Spears.
quite a bit, huh?
Jason Spears, you're still here. Awesome.
Sweet.
All right. Well, DM me on the community Slack with your mailing address and the size of the hoodie you want.
Will do. Thank you.
Cool. Hooray. Swag. I love giving away swag. We need more. We're going to be seeing some more of those. Just you wait. I heard that we were going to get some of those. Anyway, cool. So do we want to talk about like next month, or do we want to just do that in the channel? What do you think, Eugene?
Given that we are over time, unless somebody has a burning idea that, well, you know what, go to the channel and talk to everybody there, because good to have the active channel, right?
Yeah, I know we have one talk already scheduled for next time, and that's Guillermo and his app, right?
Yes, and I think we had one postponed from this year, so we actually have.
We already have two?
I mean, from this month, right?
I think that was Guillermo's. But anyway, we can double check.
There was one more who.
Oh yes, you're right. It was it's Georgia.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, great. So we're all set for next month. We can push out until 2 months from now if you have another topic you want to talk about. But cool. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and we will see you in the channel, and we will see you next month. Oh, wait, question? Oh, no. All right, cool. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.